France, a gem in northwestern Europe, stands as the continent's leading agricultural producer and one of the world's foremost industrial powers. It is also one of the world's major economic powers, standing shoulder to shoulder with giants like the United States, Germany, Italy, and the United Kingdom. From 1960 to 1973, France's economy boomed, with its gross domestic product of nearly 6% annually. Recent France deal with violence, chaos, and looting in various French cities hint at a troubling issue of de-civilization. Yet, the country is grappling with another significant challenge, deindustrialization. Over the past 3 decades, France has seen the loss of 2.5 million industrial jobs. The contribution of industrial manufacturing to the GDP has plummeted to barely 10% over 40 years, despite some recent stabilization. The soaring debt levels in major global economies pose a significant risk to France as well, with the looming threat of an austerity budget that could directly impact the financial well-being of households and consumers. Recent years have seen several corruption scandals involving high-ranking public officials, with the public works and defense industries being the most affected by these issues. Over the last 20 years, French debt has been on a steady incline. In the early 2000s, the total public and private sector debt equated to 186.7% of GDP. Fast forward to the close of 2021, and France's debt-to-GDP ratio had soared to 347.7%. Presently, France holds the highest overall debt among all Eurozone nations, surpassing even those countries like Ireland, Italy, Spain, which faced significant financial challenges in the aftermath of the global financial crisis. Since the turn of the millennium, debt has surged across every sector of the French economy. Public sector debt, for instance, has climbed from 59.3% to 113.3% of GDP, while household debt has doubled in proportion to the economy, jumping from 33.9% to 67.1% today. Similarly, French corporate debt has ballooned from 93.5% to 167.3% of GDP. During the period spanning mid-2019 to mid-2021, even French 10-year bonds often yielded negatively, prompting the French Treasury to issue multiple long-dated bonds with coupons ranging between 0 and 0.5% per annum. While many Eurozone nations seized this era of low yields to reduce their debt burden, both the French government and private sector leveraged it as an opportunity to amplify their borrowing, allowing the country to maintain a lifestyle beyond its means for much of the past decade. As of the first quarter, France's unemployment rate held steady at 7.1%, remaining unchanged from the previous quarter and notably low in historical terms. The French labor market, mirroring trends across Europe, remains remarkably robust. Since the outset of 2020, France has added a noteworthy 1.2 million new jobs, with a significant 85% of them emerging in the services sector. Although a robust labor market typically bolsters household purchasing power and fosters consumption, these promising statistics may not necessarily translate into heightened economic growth in the near future. It's important to note that the unemployment rate is among the most lagging economic indicators. In fact, the last time France saw such low unemployment rates was during 2007, marking the onset of a significant recession. While the current labor market conditions are encouraging, they may not fully reflect the economic landscape in the months ahead. This scarcity of workers extends its grip across sectors like construction, engineering, and IT, revealing a profound challenge. At the heart of this conundrum lies a significant skills mismatch. France finds itself in a predicament where it fails to produce an adequate number of skilled workers to meet its current demands. Despite enjoying its most robust growth in 6 years, the dearth of skilled labor creates bottlenecks in production and snarls up supply chains. Consequently, this shortfall in skilled workers potentially constrains the pace at which the economy can expand. More than a third of French manufacturing companies are operating at full capacity, marking the highest level since the early 1990s. 40% of these companies report difficulties in recruiting workers. painting a vivid picture of the challenges facing France's labor market. In a clear indicator of heightened demand for labor, hiring on permanent contracts surged by 6.4% in the fourth quarter, reaching levels not witnessed since the era preceding the global financial crisis. This trend mirrors developments seen elsewhere in the Western world, where wage pressures are steadily mounting, prompting many employers to contemplate salary increases in the near future. France has recently experienced widespread protests against proposed reforms, notably against the proposal to raise the retirement age from 62 to 64 years. While this might not appear particularly radical to observers from outside France, it's worth noting that many OECD countries are already moving towards a pension age beyond 65. The Pension Reform Initiative in France in 2019 aimed to establish a single universal system, streamlining the various pension schemes and regulations that currently apply to different sectors and occupational groups. However, it was ultimately abandoned due to extensive protests and the onset of the pandemic. France currently allocates approximately 14% of its GDP to total pension spending, ranking third among OECD countries after Greece and Italy, while the OECD average stands just above 9%. Projections from the French Pensions Advisory Council suggest that pension spending will escalate over the next decade by 0.5% to 1% of GDP, contingent upon productivity growth. Much of the impetus for reform stems from the pension system's deficit, with France lacking ring-fenced pension financial accounts. Future pension revenues hinge on government contributions, even accounting for government coverage of spending for special schemes, including those for civil servants, and under realistic productivity projections, deficits are projected to persist for at least the next 50 years. Estimates indicate deficits reaching between 0.6% and 1.3% of GDP by 2050, depending on productivity growth. Without reform, these deficits will compound, contributing to a significant increase in public debt. Similar to many European nations, France has witnessed a rise in prices following the onset of the Ukraine conflict. However, there's been a notable shift in early 2024, with the inflation rate dropping to 3.2%, a significant decrease from the 7.3% recorded in February 2023. As of 2024, France ranks as the 21st most expensive country to reside in among 197 nations. Notable mentions among the most expensive countries to live in include Switzerland, Iceland, Norway, Singapore, Bermuda, and Denmark. When it comes to household groceries, the Groceries Index provides a gauge of the baseline costs for an average basket of food and household items in each country. The scores from the Groceries Index reveal that the USA leads with 74.2, followed closely by Australia 73.9, Canada 70.7, and New Zealand 71.1. Meanwhile, countries like Ireland 58.9, France 68.6, the UK 55.5, and Sweden 61.8. While France may offer cheaper options for your weekly shopping compared to some countries worldwide, it stands as a pricier option compared to many of its European neighbors. For instance, Spain boasts a groceries index score of 45.1, while Portugal stands at 42.9.